Now, Australia's obsession with race is causing damage to vulnerable children in the Northern Territory. There are stories emerging that traumatised foster children are being removed from their caring homes because of a law that demands Indigenous children be cared for by Indigenous families. The Weekend Australian ran a story of two Indigenous children who were abruptly removed from their non-Indigenous foster parents despite being raised by them for nearly a decade. And they were then had to be rehomed multiple times in foster homes that they didn't want to be in. One of those children, Millie, said she just wants to be treated like a normal kid.
That you move me to another house that I don't want to, because I don't know why, but that they are nice, but I just want to be a normal kid and have a normal life. I just want things to go back the way they were. And I keep telling you guys, I told you on Friday that I told and the other girl that I don't want to go there. I want to stay with I'm happy. And they're supposed to listen to me, but I feel like you guys weren't really listening to me.
To discuss this, Leah Finocchiaro, the leader of the opposition in the Northern Territory, joins me now. Leah, welcome to the program. This revelation in the Australian on the weekend is just so sad. How common are situations like these in the NT's foster system?
Well, unfortunately, Shari, I think it's happening more often than the rest of our country realise, and certainly my CLP colleagues and I hear stories from our communities right across the Territory of situations where children in long-term family-like arrangements in foster care are, of course, being reunited at any cost through kinship care, which is just really an ideologically driven initiative by our Labor government, who are putting that system ahead of the rights of children to be in safe, happy environments where they want to be. The right of the child is not being respected, and it's not the first thing on this government's mind.
So do you think that's what needs to happen? This kinship care policy needs to change or be removed?
No, I think kinship care is a great initiative, particularly for young people who unfortunately are being removed from their families. If there is an alternative family member or someone else close to that child that can provide that care, then that's obviously a good thing if they can provide that safe environment. But unfortunately, what we're seeing is kids in long-term foster families being torn apart, re-traumatising that child. And often these kids, really only know that family. They've grown up in that environment. They live, with other siblings. They know those people to effectively be parents. And so it's incredibly traumatising. And Millie's story is just heartbreaking
so what needs
to watch,
to happen
but
then?
it's not isolated.
If it's keeping the kinship care policy in place, then what needs to happen to make sure that this doesn't happen to children who have spent a decade with the same foster family?
The policy shouldn't be kinship care at any cost and at all cost. It shouldn't be ideologically driven. It needs to be something that's applied in the appropriate circumstance, and that more attention is being paid to the voice of the children who this affects. Of course, young people just want to grow up in safe, loving and supportive environments, and that's all we can ask. And ultimately, to have these situations where children are being torn from their safe and happy place because of government policy is just wrong on every level. This government needs to pull back and take a good hard look at how this is impacting people's lives on the ground and tearing families apart.
Okay. I want to ask you about the attempted sacking of the NT Police Commissioner, Jamie Chalker. This has become an expensive spectacle for the government. What's your reaction to the claims that the Chief Minister sought his resignation over his alleged request to try get the ADF or the AFP to intervene in Alice?
Well, this has been a very sorry saga for Territorians. We are suffering a crime crisis that we have never seen before, Shari. People just don't feel safe to go to the shops and do the very basics that you would expect in any normal society. We are under siege. And of course, our police force are in a crisis as well. They have got terribly low morale. We've got a very high attrition rate. And so to have our Chief Minister in a fight with the Police Commissioner has been terribly destabilising. It's clearly their relationship has broken down to levels where now we're looking at both of them seeing their day in court. This is providing terrible instability across the Territory. And of course, people are wondering who's in their corner fighting the crime crisis when our Chief Minister is more focused on preparing her testimony in court.
Well, should politicians be able to remove police commissioners like this, or do you think they should have security of tenure, security in their position?
Well, the police commissioner should be able to operate independently of government. They've got an incredibly important job to do, and the fact that there is this allegation that he's been asked to resign because he called for either the ADF or the AFP to come into the Territory. You know, Territorians are going to be watching this court proceeding very closely to see if that is the case, because of course we know our police are completely under-resourced and that there are many calls from the community itself for those very things. So, you know, the government has a lot of explaining to do, and Territorians also want to know how much this saga is going to cost them.
All right, Leah Finocchiaro, so great to have you on tonight. We'll keep reporting on this situation on this program and on Sky News more broadly.